There's a month between Rudi's birthday and Rudi's samadhi. It starts on the 24th of January and ends pretty much on the 21st of February, where for the last however many years it's been, do you know how many years it's been? 30 some years?
40?
Yeah, long time. Since the 70s. 73. 73, 83, 93, 2000, it's 40 years this year. That Rudi becomes extraordinarily present for me during that month. Not that he's not present in general, but there's a real focal point of energy. And so much of what Rudi taught starts to filter into my consciousness. And the thing that's been really hitting me more than anything recently, the two words that Rudi used a lot, I'll use three words. One is commitment, another is effort, and a third is resistance. These were the core teachings for Rudi. And, well, I'll add a fourth one. It's called wish. I'll tell you what makes all the difference is commitment. And it's something I don't see a lot of. We did in the 60s, I have to tell you. In the 60s, there was a sense of commitment in the studentship that was just remarkable. Everybody had just taken a lot of drugs. Everybody suddenly knew that the world wasn't the world that we thought it was. Society seemed to be an affectation of some kind. People were not living in their truth, and they wanted to find a new truth, and suddenly Eastern philosophy became available. And there weren't a lot of people teaching this thing called yoga or meditation. There were very few. There are very few books on the bookshelves about it. You know, self-help was Andrew Carnegie, How to Make Friends and Influence People. There just wasn't a lot of availability of this kind of information. And, you know, I stumbled upon a bookstore, well, not a bookstore, well, I did a bookstore. There was a place called Weiser's Bookstore in New York that had a section, actually more than a section, on spirituality. And it's where I found the Tibetan Book of the Dead in its original version, the Evans Wentz version. And I started reading it, and that and the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads and all these teachings, because suddenly I just wanted to know about them, because it seemed clear to me that my drug experiences had made me aware that there was this vast, vast otherness to the world that absolutely fascinated and compelled me. The other world was so much more visible and meaningful to me suddenly than the one I was living in. And I wanted to find out more about it. I wanted to find a teacher, and it was very hard to find a teacher. So I made this pilgrimage to, basically, to India, looking for a teacher, a story I've told many times, and it was a great journey. I mean, it really was important. I'll tell you why it was important. Because I was hungry, and I made a commitment to find a teacher. And I traveled, I started off in Greece with a, it was like Zorba the Greek. I mean, I carried so many books that I couldn't literally get them from the boat to my house. I had to get a donkey so I could put all the books on, and to get them into my house. And it was on everything imaginable, from Christian mysticism to the Kabbalah to Tibetan Book of the Dead, on and on and on. And of course the lesson that comes from Greece and was given to me by a very good friend, Brett Taylor, he said, you come here to dance, basically, same as Zorba. Don't come here to read books on Tibetan Buddhism. And I had a wonderful time in Greece. And then I decided I still needed to get this information, and I sent all my books back to America in hundreds of boxes, and traveled onward. I stuck out my thumb and went to India, and really wanted to get to Tibet, but I got as far as Nepal. And I ended up living in a Tibetan monastery with these remarkable monks, and they started teaching me all these things. If I would teach them English, they would teach me Tibetan Buddhism. And I began this process of unfolding, of breaking down every bit of comfort in me. I was not a person who liked to give up comfort and ease. So living in a Tibetan monastery, traveling across Asia, sleeping outside in Afghanistan and Iran, I just gave up comfort. And I pursued teachings, and I found teachings all over the East. I had a lot of people that I would run into. The Maharishi was one. All these great Hindu teachers. I would sit on the banks of the Ganges smoking God knows what. I tried everything, and I ended up coming back after a year and a half of even trying Zen Buddhism, where they wouldn't let me do Zen Buddhism in Japan because I couldn't cross my legs properly. And I always found that odd. But I came back to New York City, which, I've described this 1,000 times. I made a journey that started here, went all the way around the world, and I came back, and 4 blocks from my house was Rudi. And Rudi had this Oriental art shop, and I walked in there to buy a Buddha. And I had actually gone to buy a Buddha from him before I went to India. And you've all heard this story, but I went to buy a Buddha, and all I could afford was $2 or $4 or something. And I looked in a case of little Buddhas, and there was one I was drawn to immediately, but it was broken, and I said no, and I kept looking. And then I asked Rudi, this big proprietor, big meaning he was very heavy set and full of dynamic energy, and I said, "Excuse me, sir, but I'm looking for a Buddha." He said, "How much do you have to spend?" I said, $4, $2. He said, "Well, come over here." And he goes to the case and picks out the broken one. And I go, "Well, yeah, but I looked at that, I liked it, but it's broken." He said, "Look for perfection in yourself, not in external objects." And I said, "Yeah, that's a great sales pitch." And I bought it. And it traveled with me all around the world. And when I came back from India, having not found a teacher, having not found what I was looking for, I found Rudi 4 blocks away. And I went to him, and I had all these Tibetan carpets that I was trying to sell for these monks, and he asked where I got them. I said, "In India." And he said, "What were you doing there?" I said, "I'd gone to find a teacher." He said, "Did you find one?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, I can teach you everything you want to know." That's how this all began. And I immediately knew that I had found my teacher. I knew he was what I was looking for. And he required something that I have never required, but probably should, which is a commitment to doing this. He said, if you're going to do this, you do it every day, you sit every day and meditate for 30 minutes a day for the rest of your life. But I said, okay, because I wanted it. I really wanted it. And Rudi didn't leave it at that. Rudi did things like he bought 4 buildings on 10th Street, in West 10th Street, and East 10th Street in New York. And he had to have them fixed. He had to tear down all the tin ceilings and put up new walls and new ceilings and all this stuff. And who did he ask to do the work? Us, the students. And it was really fascinating. He demanded that we come as often during the week as we were available to work, tearing down ceilings, throwing out garbage, fixing walls, repairing a world that was basically his world, and it was free labor. Of course, in the end, it turned out to be my world, because I went there all the time, and it became the most beautiful, beautiful setting, stepping out of the world of New York into the looking glass of Rudi's amazing ashram. And we would sit in there in a world filled with Oriental art that was so beautiful and so exquisite and large, huge, dominating pieces of Buddhas, standing Buddhas and sitting Buddhas and Shivas, and it was extraordinary. Most people that I know today, if I asked them to carry out the garbage, would look at me like, I'm not the garbage man. Rudi made it an honor to understand taking out the garbage was a service that literally was removing your garbage from the space that you inhabit. Taking out the garbage was something you did because it was a commitment to growing in yourself, to changing, to overcoming you. And you made that effort every time. I would go to Rudi's. I had a job. I would go in the late afternoon or the evening, and I would work, and Blanche would work. We would go tearing down walls. Me, Bruce Rubin, from Detroit, who wouldn't mow the lawn, from my dad. I'm tearing down walls. I'm tearing down ceilings. I'm taking out bags of garbage. I'm putting up plasterboard. I mean, it was unbelievable. I wanted to do this. I didn't have to be asked to do it. I wanted to do it because it was totally transformational. As Rudi said to me, I was paying the price for not having mowed the lawn. I was doing the work now. He gave me an opportunity to do the work. And my commitment to spiritual life involved my doing and working on this series of buildings. Then he bought a whole property in upstate New York, a hotel, all of these rooms, and he wanted us to do that. And you can look at it, as my mother and father did, as he's just using you. He's taking advantage of you. It's a complete scam. You're getting nothing for this. You're crazy. But I knew that wasn't true. I was getting so much. I would sit with Rudi, and the more I worked, the more I put out, the more I got. And you know why I got more? Because I felt worthy. For the first time in my life, I felt worthy. I felt worthy of being in his presence and taking what he had to give, because he was demanding and I was responding to the effort he was asking me to make. That commitment that I made and that Blanche made together was the foundation of our material and spiritual lives. It taught us how to work. I never knew how to work. Blanche and I took that skill and we built an apartment in New York. The entire apartment, you should have seen this place that we built. Bruce, who cannot handle a hammer, was hammering. What I couldn't do was measure. Blanche was the best measurer ever. But I learned how to build bookcases. I built a kitchen. I built platforms with sunken beds and storage and a pull-out bed. And it was like absolutely amazing. And it was beautiful. I finished the floors of the place just when Blanche was in the hospital with Josh. And she came back to an apartment that was finished, that we had worked on, which she was 9 months pregnant, hammering and building and nailing and sawing. It was the most remarkable thing. Who taught me to do that? Rudi taught me to do that. It was so beautiful. It was so extraordinary. And all of this effort was a demonstration of our commitment, and our commitment was acknowledged by and recognized by Rudi. He would look at us and he would go, "You want this. You want this. You're willing to do this. You show up." He would walk in the room and see me, spackling the ceiling, and he would look at me and he would give me a look of such joy and pleasure, because he acknowledged that every time I moved that spackle knife on the ceiling, I was saying, I want to grow. I want to change my life. I want to have what's being offered here, and I'm willing to pay any price. I live that way to this second. I live that way because Rudi taught me, if you want the greatest gift the universe has to offer, you can't just go, I kind of want that, I guess. I'll tell you what that gets you. It kind of gets you here's something, here you go. It won't be what you're looking for. It will not be what you're looking for. If what you're looking for is what I have found, you have to pay everything. And the paying doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. You give and you give and you give, and it will ask for more and more. And those of you who think you're losing something have got the whole idea wrong. It takes from you and takes from you, not because it's robbing you, but because it's freeing you. It is liberating you, from your resistance to growing, your resistance to being free, your resistance to having a real spiritual life, to being truly a joyous, open, available, successful, fulfilled human being. You don't get to that by avoiding, ignoring, and resisting. You don't get to it. And most people I know, that's what they do. They're constantly going, well, I can't do that. You know, it's taking advantage of me. It's not going to work. It's work. You have to work to make it happen. You know, and every setback is an opportunity to work again. It's not an opportunity to say, well, I give up. I can't go forward. The most impressive people I know have continual failure and work harder. And every one of them, at some point, I watch how this works, because I watched it in me. You know, my career didn't start until I was in my mid-40s. And it's not because I wasn't trying from my early 20s. It was because the universe kept watching me. And it kept going, is this guy going to really do this? Is he going to be really committed? If he's going to be really committed, we're going to give it to him. And in my 40s, that's what they did. They told me to get out of wherever I was and move to LA. They gave me a wife who not only supported that, but encouraged it and made it happen. And I moved to LA, and suddenly the soil was absolutely fertile, and an entire career blossomed. But it was 40 years of trying to get that made it happen. And my career was not the answer to a spiritual life, it was the biggest test of a spiritual life. Because I had to be in Hollywood with the biggest egomaniacal beings you have ever come across, ever, anywhere. And I had to find a way to stay what you would call centered, open, available, joyous, and continuing my commitment. Part of that commitment was to continue to teach, whether one person showed up or 20 people or nobody. I would sit in this space, well, whatever space I found, and I would do it exactly what I'm doing right now. I would just sit, feel the enormity of this energy, feel the beauty of what it means to open as opposed to shut down, feel how big that opening could be through all of these amazing chakra spaces, and then just be that for people who sat here. And everyone who sat here had the opportunity, like I did with Rudi, to absorb that. When you sit in the presence of that energy and you open to it, you don't even really have to draw it in, although I tell you, you do. You just have to be there, and it just opens. It comes in. It frees you. It liberates all of this shit, and it tells you how to work to get more. That's what it does. That's what this is all about. It's to have what Rudi called a wonderful and amazing life. And I have had a wonderful and amazing life. You know, it's an extraordinary thing. And now the universe is telling me, let go of it. I've given you all this stuff. It says, let it go. If you want another test in life, and believe me, it doesn't stop, try that. Try getting everything and then being told, let it go. It's amazing. And I only know from experience that letting it go will be liberating. It will be painful because it's hard to let go of stuff you love. But as Rudi said 1,000 times over, you can't let go of what you haven't had. So go out there and get it. Go out there and get the life you want. If it doesn't get delivered, then you weren't supposed to have it, and it's okay. I know a lot of people who didn't get what they want and are truly happy. And they would not have been happy had they gotten it. Because getting it is really tough. getting what you want is really effortful, because you not only get it, you've got to sustain it, you've got to evolve it, you've got to take it further and further and further. You know, if you win an Oscar, which occurred here, they don't then say, well, you're done. They say, well, do it again. Do it again. What's wrong with you? You can't do it again? You know, you're not as good as you were. The expectations go up and up and up. But that's completely as it should be. You have to work harder and harder and harder to do the thing you've done before. You've got to go deeper. You have to be more expansive. You have to be more capable. All of these things are about living a life. And Rudi talked completely about how do you live your life. And that's all we do. You know, I mean, I was saying to Piper, who joined class earlier today, that in my early days, and I had these spiritual experiences that took me all out into the cosmic realm, I always kept realizing, after I was in the cosmic realm, I came back to Bruce. I kept coming back to this. As big and wonderful and enormous as that was, why did I keep coming back to this? Well, I'll tell you why you come back to this, because this is what is. This is what's real. And this is where you've got to get it to work. Not out there, but I kept thinking, my entire life I kept thinking, I am working to live out there. I would sit with Rudi and sit in meditation, and I would get sweeter and softer and more open and more relaxed and more available, and I would think, I'm getting further and further out there. I was actually becoming more and more here. I was more relaxed and joyous and at peace with this. In the end, the entire journey is about here. That, of course, is the lesson I've been teaching very, very specifically for the last 2 years. This is it. It's the thing Rudi taught all the time, but he didn't say it in those terms. He just said, get your life together. This is it. Make this work. Have good relationships with people. Love the people around you. Work it out with your parents. Work it out with your boss. You know, have a connection with people. Get the things done in your home that need to get done. Live a life that is filled with sweetness and joy and people around you that you love. Have a life that works. And if you don't have it, work on it. Make it happen. Commit yourself to that. Because committing yourself to having a good life is a spiritual commitment. It's an extraordinary thing. Commit yourself to your daily life. That commitment will bring about growth. That growth will be satisfied by this wish that you have. This wish is what? What's your wish? If I had to ask you specifically what your wish is, I think most of you wouldn't know the answer. It might come down to something abstract like to be happy. I wish to be happy. But what do you do? What do you do to concretize that wish? What do you do to make that happen? And what is happiness? Do you even have an idea of what happiness is? Most of you think it's a permanent state. It's not a permanent state. It's an occasional state. Happiness comes for a bit and then it goes away. Sadness comes, clouds come, rain comes, sun comes. It changes. It's always changing. If you are working for this one thing called happiness, and then you get it for about a week, and then it goes away, you think you've done something wrong. No, you haven't done anything wrong. It went away. It goes away. But you had it, so you got to taste it and enjoy it. And then this thing comes up called confusion. Okay, confusion's there. What do you do with confusion? One, don't get caught in it. Just look at it and go, there's confusion. How can I get out of confusion? And you work your way out of confusion. Then sadness comes. Sadness comes. And you sit with sadness and you go, this is wrong. I shouldn't be here. That's not true. It arrived. It arrived. Accept your sadness. Watch what happens. Sadness has as much viability and value in your life as happiness. You go into your sadness and you watch it. It takes you to a place. It has a kind of depth. It actually sometimes goes to depression, which takes you into a very deep place. No, you don't like it. Nobody likes it. But it's meaningful. Do you stay there? Mostly not. If you do stay there and you can't get out, then what do? you ask for help. And there are people who can help you get out of depression. There are even drugs for it, but I think even better than drugs, there's climb your way out. Work it if you can. I mean, truly, some people have chemical imbalance and can't do it, and drugs are fine. You know, I have, what's it called, reflux. I can't get rid of reflux by meditation. I take a drug, and it helps. Gets rid of it. If there's a drug you need, go for a drug. If you need therapy to get out of a condition that's lingering too long, get therapy. Get what you need and get back into the game of this life. Have a life. And this is really what Rudi taught. Commit to it. And what is it that's resisting all of this? What's resisting this growth? What's keeping you stuck in the same place year after year after year after year? This deadness that we find ourselves in, this inability to move and function and flower and enjoy. What is it? The only way you're going to know is look at what it is. Look at it in yourself. Go to these places of deadness. Most people go to the places that are joyous and flowering. So many of you already have good hearts. You have good hearts. But you don't want to go to the navel chakra because it's completely shut down. Or your mind is not as bountiful and clear-headed and available as you would like it to be. So you always go to the place that's of least resistance, where you're most comfortable. And you live there. You build a house there. That's okay, except what are you going to do with all these places that are not working in you? All of these parts of your being that are dysfunctional. Go there. Go there, sit in your navel chakra, feel your sexuality if you're not having a good sexual life. Feel your throat chakra if you find yourself unable to fully and brilliantly and exquisitely express your need to the world. Go here and just sit there and watch what happens. Energize these spaces and they start to open. If you're conscious, and that's what spiritual work will bring you, if you're conscious, you will go to all of these different places and you will do the work of paying attention and watching them slowly, just like a flower, they go. Consciousness brought into closed parts of your being starts to release, melt, dialogue with, and affect the deadness and open it up. And it just happens. And you become a whole person. You become aware of all of the possibilities in yourself. You become free. And then this extraordinary thing happens, which I've shared with most of you, which is the story of your life that led you to this place. The whole story just goes, whoa, it just drops away. It's an amazing thing. You get to a point where you have achieved this wholeness, and the wholeness falls away. And there you are, stark naked in the world, as a universal self, let's say. A self without story. A self that still has emotion, that still feels, that has fear and hope. A self that still doesn't want to die particularly. A self that is completely present. But it's not yourself anymore. It's not your story anymore. It is just the self. It is our self. And we all share it. Every one of us shares that self. If your story falls away, if we were sitting in this room and all of our stories were gone from us, we would be one thing, one homogeneous is maybe the wrong word, it wanted to come up, but it's really one not very homogeneous, but very dynamic presence. That's what we are. We're this phenomenal presence. We're this phenomenal being. Every one of us is this collective truth. And if you let your story fall away, we live together sharing this enormity of awareness. It's so beautiful, so thrilling, so exciting, so much a picture of what this universe could be, what this planet could be. God knows if it will ever be that. Rudi called the Earth the Bellevue of the solar system. And it is. It's crazy. It's a madhouse. It's a true madhouse. And we're all in it. But you can find a way in the midst of this to be free of it. And when you're free of it, you look at it and go, oh my God, this is the most amazing, brilliant, wondrous, beyond conception, creation imaginable. And you are not only in it, you begin to find that you are it. I've been having these experiences recently. I've tried to describe it to Blanche. It's very strange. An experience of being erased. You know how everything gets smudgy when you're erasing? I feel smudgy. The remainders of Bruce are getting just like this. They're just erasing it. A little bit every day. There's a little less there. And I thought it had all fallen away, but boy, they keep finding other things to erase. And it's very strange. And at the same point that they're erasing it, they are taking the structures around it, or trying to, or we're in the process of doing it, and taking them away. You know, selling New York is a big deal. I'll tell you, you know, it's already in a way gone inside. Actually driving away from it will be painful. But if at some point they decided to leave it there, and I don't know that would happen, it wouldn't matter anymore because it's already gone. It's already done. I've already left and am leaving this house, if you will. I'm already done with this body. It's already done. It's just letting it play itself out. That's what we're all doing. I'll tell you why that's not a bad thing. Because I think for some of you it feels like, oh my God, that's the worst thing that could happen. Let go of my home, let go of my family, let go of everything I love, let go of my body, let go of my name, let go of my history. It must be the worst thing ever. It's the best thing ever. It's the only thing you want. It is complete liberation from this cockamamie story you're telling yourself is you. All that's left is this thing that says, I am. That's all that's left. I am. And we don't even know what I am is. It just is. That's what's left. That's the journey we're on. And I'm telling you, I sit with people now and I look at the gradations, if you will. From, I told Blanche the other day, the monkey, let's say, is at the bottom. And then there's, you know, a lot of people I know a few inches above that. And then there's this thing that goes up and up and up and up. And there are a few people up here. And there's all this stuff in the middle. And all that stuff in the middle is layers and layers of illusion and layers of resistance. Patterns of being stuck. There are people here who have rippled out so far away from their own center that I don't even know how we exactly call them back to continue on this journey going toward freedom. People ripple out into crazy places, and they stay there for lifetimes if there's such a thing. But it feels like there is. Like you just get stuck and stuck and stuck and stuck and stuck and stuck. And how do you get out of being stuck? I took LSD, and then I met Rudi. Am I recommending that as the path? No, I don't know how it works. But Grace suddenly gave me this drug, and then it gave me this teacher who said, don't use drugs. And then it gave me this energy to make this journey, and something in me wanted this more than anything in the world, and the commitment I made to that day one hasn't left me for a second. Not for a second. And it has given and given and given, but in fact, in truth, the real verb is it has taken and taken and taken and taken. But everything that it has taken away has resulted in a gift. What's left behind is bigger than what you had. Always. Always. So if I can encourage you guys to commit to this in some deeper and more profound way, that would be my wish. I don't have to wish it for myself anymore because it's all in play. I wish it for you. I wish you would commit to this with everything in you, because it's worth it. And I wish that you would grow to arrive at this place where there's no more you left. That's what I wish. And I wish that you would understand and engage the effort involved, and know that the effort will not be pleasurable, particularly. It will not be what you want. In fact, I will almost guarantee you it will not be what you want. It will be more work. It will be more sweat and blood and tears than you want to give, but it's how this thing happens. You don't get there by a casual desire. You don't get there by an occasional Sunday morning. You get there by making this the core of your life, and you only have so many years to do it. And when you start to hit my age, boy oh boy do you realize how few of those are left. So if you don't get into it, I mean, Rudi said very clearly, he said, you really got to do this when you're young because it's a young man's work, or a young woman's work. And I get that. The heavy lifting was all done in my 20s and 30s and 40s. The stuff that's going on now is definitely hard, but I got a muscle system that lets me do it. So I implore you, commit to this because it's worth it. Make the effort. I wish I had a house for you to build, but I don't. And if I did, I think you'd all disappear. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but many people would. Find the wish in yourself and make it concrete. Get rid of an abstract wish, make it solid. And stare the resistance down. Wear it down. Break it down. Moment to moment. And then flush it out. You know, the negative psychic tension release exercise, where you hold your hands by the side of a chair, or when you're sitting on the toilet. You do it for a minute a day. You just let your hands dangle. You take a breath into your heart, through your nose, up through your whole upper, sort of your head, your third eye, down through your temples and your jaws and your cheeks and your whole neck and all of your upper body, and you let this stuff come to your heart. You take a deep breath here and you say, please help me to surrender negative psychic tension. Say negative. Don't get rid of positive psychic tension. Please help me to surrender negative psychic tension, and let this stuff drain out into your hands and into the atmosphere. And if it doesn't drain, it will collect in your hands and it will feel like they're encased in cement, so give them a good shake out. 1 minute a day, and all of the resistance that you're breaking down stays away and doesn't reformulate 4 hours later. You free yourself of that shit. And you do this, and you get freer and freer and freer, and ultimately you awaken to who you are. That's the journey. If that journey doesn't interest you, don't show up here, because that's all it's going to give you is nothing. It's going to give you absolute nothing. No you. You aren't going to walk around and end up as a special person. You're going to end up being no person. I mean, of course you'll be a person. You'll be totally yourself, but there ain't nothing special. It's other than the fact that every human being is as special as you. It's just arriving at what is and realizing how lucky you are to be on this ride. Well, I could talk this out forever, but I think the basic point has been made. Good luck, guys. I would love to enforce commitment, but it's not my job, it's yours. So I wish you well. Any questions?
I think there are a few parts to this, and I hope I can say it somewhat cohesively. I've always appreciated how you said, how Rudi said, you have to have a life, to have a spiritual life, and something I've personally tried to attend to a lot more the last 15 years and the more 10 right before it. And something I'm kind of reminded of in this particular moment, the struggle, was I remember Siddhartha. There's a point in the book, in the story, where he gets very involved, he gets back in life in a way, and he becomes kind of a shadow of his former spiritual self. He's kind of loses, that tactile connection to it. And that's right. There are a couple pieces to this question, I guess, and maybe I have part of the answer. But one is, I felt that. I felt, I'm trying to bulldoze my way back into life, and I've also felt a little less kind of cosmic, a little less connected spiritually. Interestingly, one of the great things about having babies and having new students, and then still trying to do your work is that you have a lot of work to do. It does get you going, and but I've thought of Siddhartha in that time of his life when he kind of sort of lost himself, and and the other piece of this is connecting to something you were saying when you first came out here, and right into the sort of the teeth of the eye of the storm, the teeth of this business, and I think of a certain stuckness. I for all my effort, I feel so stuck around being able to move the people I work with or need, or like they just don't, it's like I'm invisible to them in some way. They don't see it vibrationally, frequency-wise. They don't sense as much as I'd like a value I might represent for them. As much as I'm doing a song and dance, say, hey, look, that could be worth something to you. I mean, it just feels, I don't know what piece to move in myself to get out of this stuckness, And
Well, Siddhartha didn't know either. In that middle section, he didn't know. But he was committed to that day-to-day moment. That's really what it is. It has a natural flow. It knows what it's doing. It's far more brilliant than we are. It puts us in this situation because we're supposed to be there. Those who get lost in it, truly lost in it, don't come to class on Sundays. They don't think about this. They don't sit. They're just lost. If you sit and you can weave into the density of this life that we are given, this current of light that flows through it, that will illuminate that density, that will allow you to even ask a question like that, that is how this thing is supposed to work. We all get caught in the middle. When I was directing that movie, I was really totally taken over, and I know because you direct, you get totally taken over. The only thing that saved me is I taught class through that whole period. And every Sunday I sat down and I did this. I didn't have time to sit down, but I made time. And that making time kept that alive in it. Also, the dynamic in you that is even asking the question is a very driven and real dynamic, and it's looking for, pushing for everything that will keep this thing going. That's commitment. Those who don't have that question don't have the commitment. Your commitment is alive and well. Don't worry about it, but go through your process. The process is exactly what you're going through. So, what more can you do? There's nothing else. You can't move the universe if it's not going to be moved. All you can do is knock on that door. Christ says, knock and it shall be open. But it's a lot of knocking. He didn't say go, hello. It's like that all the time. You keep knocking. Finally, you get its attention. You really get its attention. And at that point, hello. And then you walk in. Walk in. Okay, it'll open.
Well, that's the knocking. You feel so ashamed, like a beggar, just like.
Yeah,
hey,
right.
Hey.
Yeah, beggar. That's beautiful. You're a beggar.
Absolutely.
We all are. And trust me, what's being offered here is so phenomenal that they don't just parse it out to anyone who walks by. I will tell you that. If you want which is available to you here, you have to prove a worthy vessel. You want to take that vessel that you are and scrub it and work it out and get all the rough edges out of it. It's really important. I'm reminded, when when I was a kid, when I was in India, actually no, when I was in Japan, I went to go to this great Buddha, the Kamakura Buddha, and it has these big hands, like, can you see that? These big hands down here, and all I wanted to do was sleep in those hands of this big Kamakura statue. So I snuck into the park where it existed, and at night they closed the park down. And so nobody knew I was there. And after everybody was gone, I climbed up this statue and I went into the hands of the Buddha, and they were just nothing but welds and this awful rough material. There was nothing embracing about that space. I couldn't even sit in there, let alone lie in there. It was horrible. But what a great, it was so important to know that. The hands of the Buddha are not embracing, they hurt. They're not comfortable. And so then I went out and I slept on a table, and I covered myself with whatever mosquito netting I had because it was unbelievably infested, and my feet stuck out, and I had like 100 or 200 mosquito bites on my feet when I woke up in the morning, surrounded by school children staring at me. What are you doing here? And it was totally bizarre, but it dawned on me years later that it was the best metaphor for what spiritual work is. The embrace of the Buddha is rough. It's rough until it isn't. The only thing that doesn't experience roughness is your true self, because there's no resistance. Okay? Okay, guys. Thank you. See if anyone shows up here next week. We'll continue this process. Thank you.